Hello and welcome back to Rev Real Estate School. I'm your host, Michael Montgomery, and we're lucky to be joined by Dustin Brohm today. Dustin, how are you doing?
Doing awesome, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. So Dustin is, if you've heard his name, you may have. He also hosts a wonderful, wonderful podcast called the Massive Agent Podcast, and it is a great, great show, of course, dedicated to the real estate industry and real estate agents. But on top of that, speaker, trainer, social media coach. He's also an extremely high producer and just recently joined Real as well. So you got a pretty good resume there.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And as we were jumping into this, I was right before we actually started rolling. I was just asking Dustin, what he does, and like outside of that, what does he do? And he's like, "Oh, I talk to agents all day. So my job is talking to agents all day." So we're gonna get a ton of information here. Yeah, we're gonna get a ton of information from you here on how agents can best structure and build their businesses. But to kick things off, when we're thinking of real estate agents right now, 2024. What are some mistakes that you're seeing them make? What are some common mistakes that you're seeing?
It's the same old stuff. The NAR settlement has amplified a lot of these mistakes, and that's speaking over the heads of the people you want to hire you, right? Sometimes that's talking about the stuff that you want them to hear, that you find important without really thinking about what they want or need to hear or what's going to get their attention. And so, a lot of agents just talk to talk. And this transcends, this is true across Facebook ads, door hangers, phone calls, social media content. It's all the same problem, that if you don't first identify who you're speaking to, right? It's not even marketing 101. It's like, before you can take marketing 101, you have to know, who are you marketing to? And then what do they need and what do they want? And then how does what you offer fit in with that? And most agents just don't think that through, and they use social media, or they use their postcards or their door hangers or their scripts to tell people what they want them to hear. And especially true on social media and with ads that I see, you're telling people what you want them to hear. You're showing them what you want them to see, versus asking what do they actually need? What do they want? How can I get their attention and advise and educate? And so it's a fundamental issue. It's a fundamental screw up that I just see agents making all the time.
Very interesting. And so when we're thinking about them not speaking the way that they should be speaking, or within their marketing, within their ads, what are some examples of some things that, and probably a lot of these things are going to be commonplace for real estate agents, but what are they saying that isn't resonating?
This happens a lot when there's news or headlines, and this really gets to a pet peeve of mine, is when agents will just read a headline and read here's the headline, without deciphering it, without saying, here's what this actually means to you, Mr. Seller, if you're planning on selling your house. Here's what this actually means. They're just saying, hey, here's what's happened. And this happens when by the way, agents don't know what the hell FHFA is, right? The FHFA who deals with loan limits. Agents don't know what the hell that four-letter organization is. Do you think consumers do? And so agents create this content. They're like, good news, FHFA just increased loan limits. And the agent doesn't know what that means. So how's the person who's not a real estate pro, how are they going to interpret that? It's just speaking over their head. It's using industry jargon that most agents don't even understand themselves, and they think that's good content. So the agents that say, hey, here's what happened, but here's what it means for you. If you're buying a house, now you actually have more flexibility. You could actually, based on the loan that you're trying to get, you could do this in this price range, right? So it's taking what happened and distilling it down to, here's what it means for you, here's how it affects you. And that's really becoming an advisor, right? Not just like a spokesperson or a salesperson. Agents are not salespeople, right? We're advisors. The best agents are advisors and guides and educators. So, I mean, that's really where I see it the most, is talking over the heads of consumers with headlines and industry jargon. And newsflash, agents, if the people that you're speaking to, the people you want to hire you, if they understood all that shit, why would they need you? Like if they were industry insiders and knew what all of that meant already, why would they need you? They're not going to hire you if they already know all that stuff. So you have to assume people don't know anything, not to treat them like they're stupid, but just this isn't their field, right?
It's a really good point. And one place that probably all of us can start to think through right now and see how this is playing out is even in the news with the NAR lawsuit, and how there's a lot of talk around, hey, this is going to cause like a pretty steep reduction in home values. And I think all of us in the industry are like, wait a second, the sellers aren't just going to give away part of their margin because they maybe potentially aren't paying a buyer's agent. So it can be quite confused when the news puts out something and then we're reporting it as agents versus actually commenting on what it means for them.
Yeah, 1,000%. I couldn't have said any. That's exactly how it works.
Yeah. Okay. And then so let's say that the agent is they're less focused, or there's not something in the news cycle right now that they want to comment on, and they're thinking, or they're coming to you even, they're saying, Dustin, like, I don't know what to create content on. What should I be creating my content on? What are some of the strategies that you would bring up with that agent?
First off, they need to understand they're overthinking the crap out of it. Creating content in this industry is so easy if you take a step back and look at all these misconceptions that are out there, all these misunderstandings about the process or how things work, or you know what I mean? And so if you have no idea what to post, first off, just go consume a bunch of other good stuff, because you're going to get inspired by other content that people are creating, and it's going to inspire you to do bits and pieces of them, into your own thing. Or if you really wanted to be intentional, rather than just consuming stuff, go to a comment section of a video, like a real estate topic. Go to the comment section, one that's gone viral, because then you're going to get a lot of these trolls that are giving, that are just talking shit about whatever it is. And in those, a lot of them are just ridiculous, but you get to see the misconceptions, especially since the NAR settlement and since realtor commissions have been such a hot topic over the last 2 or 3 years. You have all these comments from people that they just don't understand. They're wrong. So instead of just thinking of them as idiots, think, okay, if that person thinks that must be, I bet other people do. Okay, let me create something that educates people on the way things actually work.
Amazing. I mean, I love that idea, actually. Just jump into the comment section and see what sort of chatter is going on there when it comes to real estate content. But you're so right. Like, because real estate is so hyper local, I can follow Dustin. And if Dustin is posting something really cool in Salt Lake City and I'm not in Salt Lake City, like, you can still, you're not necessarily copying it per se, but you can be inspired by that style of content because of the hyper local nature of real estate. Now, let's say the agent does this, gets a few content ideas, is ready to rock and roll, and then they come to you with this kind of age-old issue where they say, but I'm a perfectionist. I don't want to hit submit. I don't want to record myself on video. I spend way too much time recording that short. It took me a week, and then I never actually posted it. How would you start to coach them through that?
First off, everyone starts that way. Everybody. I started that way. I started super uncomfortable and awkward on camera. Felt like I had to read a script, and your eyes are slightly off camera when you're reading a script, and it's just like, my first video is terrible. My first 100 videos, my first 1,000, terrible. So first off, you got to get over yourself and realize that you're going to suck until you get good. This is such a basic concept, but we forget it, and that's why I'm saying the obvious here. Anything that you've never done before, you're going to suck at. And if it's worth getting good at, then keep doing it, right? So like walking, we had to learn how to walk by falling on our face over and over and over. And eventually you learn how to walk. Same with driving. You weren't born knowing how to drive a car or drive a clutch. I mean, most kids these days don't even know what a clutch is.
Don't know what that is.
Right. I'm 40, so I totally dated myself here. But you get my point. It's, I mean, I don't even, you really just have to accept the fact that you're doing something new, you're going to suck, but the more you do it, the better you get, the more comfortable you get. There's still value in that suckage period, right?
Yes.
And so during that suckage period, you're also relatable. And I think a lot of people think that they have to get to a place where they're super polished and, they could just deliver things. Don't be polished. Please, for the love of God, stop being polished, because that means you sand off the personality. If you're doing a video in the beginning and you lose your train of thought, or your voice cracks, or a car comes behind you and honks and interrupts you, like, people watching are not content creators. The majority of people watching your stuff are not marketers. And so when something like that happens, as long as you can, shrug it off and just keep rolling with it, it's relatable. And even more than that, it's memorable. If they're going to remember the video where the car honked in the background and you were like, oh, they're going to remember that. But they're not going to remember if you perfectly deliver your lines, blah, 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 the 5 reasons why you should buy a house this year. That's not as memorable. So while you're sucking, you're also like, that's actually a beautiful period of time. And all you have to do to really win big is just to keep going. As simple as that. Embrace the suck, keep moving through it. And pretty soon you're going to be like, it doesn't bother me that I'm speaking to a camera lens right now. It just feels normal. So a quick tip for anyone who's there and you're like, I'm so awkward on camera. It's so uncomfortable for me. I don't know what to do. Then stop making it so hard. If you're thinking that you've got to like do a YouTube channel when you've never done videos before, I mean, that's a much higher hurdle to clear than doing 5-second Instagram stories. I got comfortable on camera using Snapchat and just speaking like this, right? Just speaking to the camera 10 seconds at a time. You start to do that a few times a day, and after a few weeks or after a few months, you're like, this feels normal to me now, right? Mm-hmm. So repetition, start practicing in ways that are easy. Your stories, no one expects those to be professional. People expect them to have crappy lighting and shaky, because it's behind the scenes. It's like a glimpse into you. It's not supposed to be studio quality stuff. So start there, get comfortable, and then dive more into, higher end video, if that's the direction you even want to go.
It's such a good point. Like, what I'm hearing is you can't think your way into comfort, right? You're not going to be able to think your way into being comfortable on camera. You're going to have to act your way into being comfortable on camera, which is challenging, I think, at times for folks to really embrace. They can understand the concept, but to actually embrace it and do it. And you're bringing up kind of a really cool point here too, around there's a lot of magic in this sucky zone. And I think that you also have a pretty low bar in that period of time, because you may have, like, let's say you have 50, 60, 100 followers. Like, that's the time to not necessarily feel as comfortable as you could be. And then once that followership starts to grow, you improve, and that continues to grow from there. So if you were to post something at this point in time that was very, very poor quality, there'd be a lot of people that would see it. But if it was a number of years previously, you kind of have a free pass in many ways, because there's fewer people seeing it ultimately.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And, something that I just thought of as you said it that way, that if I were to post something now that's low quality, a lot of people would see it. You're right. 1,000% right. But I also wouldn't care.
Totally.
Right?
That's the magic of it. Yeah.
Yes. Because what the hell does low quality mean? There's what I've learned by doing thousands and thousands of videos is that most of the time, I'm not even going to say some of the time, most of the time, the stuff that you're just like, oh, I don't know about that. I should probably I'll post it. It's kind of like random. I didn't think it through really well, and you hit post. A lot of times that just goes crazy and performs really well. Yeah. And then this other video that you took all this time and wrote a script and you're like, this is going to crush it. This is going to go viral. It doesn't. And so I've learned over time to just put stuff out there. And of course you want to be intentional and somewhat thoughtful, right? But you get better at that over time. The more you just swing the bat, the faster you're going to get good. Mm-hmm. Like I'm a golfer. I'm a golf fanatic. And so I'm just trying to swing that thing so I can get my swing dialed in. And the more I swing the club, the better I get at striking the ball. You can't think your way into that, like you said, and you can't read about it. So the more you do it, the faster you do it, the more posts you do, the more videos you do, the faster you're going to get good and comfortable. And then um, then you're like, okay, is this a crappy video? Like, what does that even mean? I'll let them decide. And you hit post. You're like, cool, there it is. Some people, no one's going to be like, this is the worst video I've ever seen. Some people just
Yeah,
won't
totally.
see it.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, what is low quality? That the definition of that, like you've probably heard of this. I don't remember his last name, but he's on YouTube. His name's Sam something, and he's a fitness guy, and he records his workouts, but
Sam
he's
Sulek.
kind of yeah, Sam Sulek. Yeah, and
Yeah.
if anybody wants to have an understanding of what quote unquote low quality might be, is go to his channel, watch his videos, and watch how many views he gets, and how it's literally like the lowest quality video you can. He's no edits. He's just jumping in there and like doing his workout. There's no like thumbnail. There's no like title optimization. He's just creating good stuff, and that's a relatable approach for a lot of us.
Yeah. There's long, awkward pauses. There's no jump cuts in his videos. It's because it's real and authentic, which this is where I think people starting out today have a little bit of an advantage, because I think content on social has it's gone so far to like it's gone so far to the like editing, like over editing, over produced, right, with big captions and a bunch of different jump cuts every 2 seconds, and it's been overdone, and now there's this craving for just the more real and raw and authentic stuff that doesn't have all that fancy crap, which means it's easier to produce, and there's more of a demand for it than maybe a couple of years ago. So I think that's actually a real benefit to anyone who's starting out today.
It's a good point. It's a really good point. Yeah, there's more of a demand for that style of content. I love that. Now, I guess outside of social, how else are you seeing agents see some success when it comes to growing their business? And let's take, for example, somebody who is relatively new, but in the growing phase. So they have maybe a few deals under their belt, as in they have a few past clients, they have an SOI. How else are you coaching them beyond social, or is social like 110% the direction that you would suggest they go? Or are there other strategies that you'd also encourage them to explore?
That's a great question. Social is a tool. It's not the only tool. And so, look, I'm not trying to let anyone off the hook here. If they're like, "Well, I'm scared to do it. I'm scared to do it." I'm not letting you off the hook where you can say, "Okay, cool, I don't have to do it." But we all know agents that are doing very, very, very well that don't ever use social media. They don't post anything ever, and they're crushing it. We know agents that are crushing it, and all they use is one social network. They only use Facebook. They never use Instagram or TikTok, which everyone says you must use, right? So there's exceptions to the rules here. And there's tried and true. The tried and true principles are you just have to get the people who already know you to see you more often, repeatedly, and they need to come to the conclusion. They need to discover for themselves what you do for a living, and discover for themselves that you're credible in their eyes. You can't tell them these things. They have to discover it. And so, like, I'll hit social and then I'll go to the more traditional stuff. The easiest way to highlight that is just to document what you're doing, right? Not to say, "Hey, I'm Dustin with Real Broker, and if you have any questions about real estate, please reach out to me." First off, that's so cringe and bad. The best thing would be to do a piece of content where you're showing the rooftop deck of your listing and the hot tub and the view overlooking downtown or something, for example, and just show it. And just by showing that, saying, "Hey, check this out at my listing." You're not saying, "I'm a real estate agent, you should hire me." They're discovering, "Oh, that's your listing. You're a real estate agent. Oh, that's a really cool place." That may actually start a conversation without you beating them over the head with what you do, or a call to action, right? So highlighting what you do, not necessarily telling people what you do, is huge. Now, the more traditional, the stuff that I'm seeing really work for agents is calling your database. Like, as much as I hate cold calling, like randomly calling strangers to me is just a horrific waste of time. There's no leverage to it. It's a dumb use of time, in my opinion, when there are better choices. But reaching out to, connecting with people that already know you, AKA your network, is really smart, because if there's people that already know you and like you and they trust you, they think you're a credible person, then they learn what you do for a living. As long as they remember that at the right time, right? When they need an agent, when they need someone to talk to about refinancing, when they need to talk to someone about, hey, we just got a job transfer, we got to list the house and leave the city in 30 days. They need to see you and remember what you do at that time. You can't have just mentioned, hey, I'm a real estate agent, or hey, I helped a neighbor sell, or whatever. You can't just do that once 3 years ago and expect people are going to remember it when it comes time. They have to see you over and over and over. So that could be obviously social media content. Commenting on their social media content is the biggest hack. Like you want to spend 2 to 3 hours a day prospecting, spend 2 to 3 hours a day commenting on your network's posts. It's getting you in front of them in a way that's not like, hey, who do you know that needs to buy or sell real estate? Then door hangers work, door knocking works, postcards work, open houses work. It all works because you're getting in front of people. And as long as you do that consistently over time and do it enough to get good at those things, it all works. Like open houses are a great way of doing business, or a great way of attracting business if you do great open houses. Because when you do an open house, you're auditioning for future business, right? If we're being honest, you're doing the open house technically to sell that house. You're usually not going to. You're also doing the open house to get more clients, not just buyers, but the neighbors. They see, holy crap, how do they have that many cars lining the street for that open house? I need to go meet this agent, right? The neighbors are noticing. So you're auditioning for future business. So all that tried and true stuff still works. It's just, it doesn't work for the agents that dabble in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, you've got to do it consistently over time.
And how would you, I guess, define dabbling versus committing to something? So for example, if they're doing open houses, and you've probably seen this 100 times, open houses don't work for me. Well, how many open houses have you done? Well, I did 3 over the last, 6 months, and I didn't get any clients, so I'm not going to do them anymore. So that I think would clearly be dabbling. So how, I guess, would you help an agent think through, or maybe even help them understand, maybe you are dabbling in this and it's time to either go hard in it or shift course? What would be dabbling?
Well, I know what dabbling is because I dabbled. I was a dabbler. Strangely, the first half of my career, when I was struggling like crazy, I was dabbling. I try one thing. Oh, that's not producing the results. I better try something else. So-and-so is doing these magical letters, in direct mail. So, oh my God, I'm going to take this webinar. Oh, I need to buy that product. I'm going to do that. I do that. 2 months later, I haven't got any business from this. Crap. Okay. Oh, so-and-so is doing that. They're getting all that business from, oh, I better do that. If you're bouncing around because you're not getting results, you're a dabbler. So the key is to, pick a couple things that you could just do repeatedly forever. I don't literally mean forever, but just, you don't say, I'm going to do this for 30 days and see how it goes. If you're doing it for 30 days, it's not going to work. I mean, I need to look up how long it took me to sell my first house. I want to say it was like 6 months. It was like 4 to 8 months it took me to sell my first house. Well, that's about how long it took me to get my first actual client from content creation. It was 3 or 4 months. Imagine if I said, I'm going to try this for 30 days. So this is where you've got to pick some strategy that you could be excited about. Not that you have to love every minute of it, but you're like, okay, this makes sense to me. This is congruent with my personality. I'm going to do this. So door knocking and cold calling was not that for me. Like, I hated doing that shit. My mentor told me I had to. And so because it wasn't my personality, I didn't do well at all. And then once I found content marketing and learned how to attract people, I'm like, okay, this I can do. Like, I enjoyed the process. And so when you enjoy the process, at least, or even just tolerate the process, you can do it long enough to see results. That's the key. If you're not doing something long enough to see results, you're dabbling. And so it helps if you have a couple different pillars, right? If maybe it's a YouTube strategy and open houses. Cool. Well, those two things you just keep doing repeatedly and time block it into your calendar. It's just something you do every day or every week, and you just keep doing it. And eventually it will pay off. It absolutely will pay off.
It's so true. And I really like that mindset of it's something that you could see yourself doing forever. Of course, we know that that's not necessarily going to be the case. But if you're saying that to yourself and you're saying, okay, I'm going to cold call, and you're going to say to yourself, I'm going to cold call forever. Like, I'm like you, there's no chance you're going to ever catch me cold calling. It just does not work for my personality at all. But if it does, if you think to yourself, I'm going to try this, but I'm not going to be able to stick with it for 6 months to like a year plus, you're dabbling. I really like that way of framing it. So if they come to you, Dustin, the agent comes to you and says, okay, let's do a content strategy, and let's also mix in open houses. And so now when they're mixing in the open houses, or they're mixing in some sort of strategy that involves them being face-to-face with somebody, how are you coaching them to be speaking to that individual? We can use the open house, I think, as the example. Somebody walks in and they say to you, I need to increase my conversion at the open house. How are you coaching them through that process?
So there are way better open house coaches than me for sure, but like I focus on foundational stuff. So it's as simple as be a decent, interesting human being. Like, just be pleasant, be happy, be a fun person. Like it's so simple. So be likable. When people walk into your open house, if you have a script, it's okay to have certain questions that you're going to ask. Absolutely. But you want to make sure that you ask them when it's natural in the conversation. Ask them at the right times. But if you just go through your script rigidly because you were told, here's the script, in certain situations, it's going to feel so off and unnatural. And people are they're not going to connect with you because they feel like you're just trying to ram something down their throats. So have conversations, listen. It's as simple as genuinely giving a shit what somebody else has to say, and ask questions. Ask, oh, do you live in the area? Oh, you don't? Oh, cool. Like, where do you live and what has you over here? Oh, really? And then you get some more information. Oh, cool. Well, what about this? And just be genuinely curious, and you're going to gather all the information you want. And they're going to enjoy talking to you enough to where they connect with you at a personal level. And when you can get someone to connect with you, they'll hire you.
Yeah.
Right. You may not get 100% of them to hire you, but people hire those that they connect with at a personal level. So just be someone who can be connected with, and ask questions, be genuinely curious. You can feel out certain conversations. If somebody just doesn't want to talk at all, let them go. Like,
yeah.
Who says you have to like push everyone into a corner and make sure they answer 4 questions? Like, why? If someone's an asshole, let them go be an asshole to somebody else. And just be a social person. It's so simple, and ask questions. And as long as you do that effectively out of genuine curiosity, you're going to gather all the information that any script would be getting anyways.
I absolutely love it. Like, generally what we suggest is maybe you have your talking points, but do not script yourself. Go in, comment. So if you're coming in, cool hat, love the real shirt, like you're just having these conversations. I remember one open house that I converted a family at, and we didn't talk about the house. They came in, they kicked off their shoes. I looked down at their shoes, and they were all wearing Birkenstocks, which were like my favorite shoes. And so I was like, "Oh, you guys love Birkenstocks?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I was wearing my Birkenstocks. So we started to have this conversation about Birkenstocks. That was the only conversation had, was about this type of shoe. And then they were like, "Love your card. We need a realtor." And I thought about it. I'm like, there was not one discussion about the house, the community, when they're looking to buy, anything. It was just a human conversation like you'd have with anybody else, and a few little jokes around Birkenstocks. Simple stuff, really.
Yes. You have to, if there's no personal connection, you're not getting business. Simple as that. And so forget about getting the business and just try to connect with people. If they walk in the door and they're wearing like a Masters logo on the hat or something, and it's April, you're like, "Oh, have you been watching this weekend? Like, did you see what I told you I'm a golf junkie." Yeah. So like that would be so easy for me. I wouldn't give a crap about anything else. I would just talk to them about the masters. And I know you can't just buy those online or at stores. You have to get it from Augusta. And like, did you go or did a friend get it for you? Like I would just talk about that the whole time, which means we would connect, like you said.
Yes, I love this. So, like, don't even think about the business. Just think about connecting. Forget about the business. Forget about conversion. Forget about all of that stuff. Just
Yeah.
focus on the connection. And I think that this works. I know we've been talking about open houses in this case, but this works in so many different domains. When you're connecting with people, that's when you're winning. You're not winning when you're trying to convert. Let's pivot ever so slightly. Well, I guess maybe a larger pivot, but towards the good old NAR settlement. And we'll start with this maybe around just the fear that may exist in an agent's mind. I know some agents aren't as worried about it, but everybody has probably a little bit of fear of what the future of real estate could end up looking like for us come less than a year's time. So how are you helping agents start to think through the fear aspect of these changes?
It is putting things into perspective and helping them realize they're just unprepared. There's just certain things they don't know yet. There's certain things they don't know how to do. There's certain things they don't know about. They just don't know those things yet. So, for example, I've been an agent for 13 years. From day one, I was taught, so I'm in Utah, buyer broker agreements are just how we do business. It's how we've done business for the last 13 years minimum. I know for longer than that, but at least from day one. And I was taught that's just how it works. So we negotiate our commission with the buyer up front. They're responsible to pay it ultimately. But if we can find a listing that will pay it for them, fantastic. But that was just the conversation I've always had. And so agents that aren't used to buyer broker agreements and you're not used to having that conversation, it's only scary because you haven't done it yet. So how awesome that there's so many other veterans in the industry that have been doing it their entire careers that you can learn from. So it's just a simple matter of educating yourself and then giving it some practice. And once you do those things, then you become comfortable, you become confident, and then you're going to realize, hey, you know what? This is actually better for everybody. Oh my gosh, there's actually a way for me to get a pay increase as a buyer's agent. And it starts with educating yourself and then some practice. So it's if you are nervous, anxious, a little bit scared, it's just because you're unaware of certain things that you have to learn. Do not be afraid. The only agents that are going to go out of business that aren't going to survive are the lazy ones. Those that are not willing to learn new skills. They're not willing to practice. They're not willing to learn how to sell your value proposition. Right. And something that I'm teaching agents a lot right now is, and you should have been doing this all along, but it's even more important right now. You have to really sell yourself. So if it's new to you and new to your market that you're like, hey, you're actually going to have to pay me directly and here's how much I charge for my services. Well, you have to start with outlining everything that you're going to do for them. So what a lot of buyer's agents do is like, cool, I'll be your buyer's agent. And there's never a discussion about what your services are. You just assume everyone knows what a buyer's agent does for a buyer. Well, I mean, think about that. That's lazy. And you can't expect to be a high-paid professional if that's how you approach business, if we're being real. So you've got to be willing to learn new skills. And luckily, there are so many other great agents and great leaders and great mentors in the industry that are putting it all out there. You just have to show up and listen. You just have to reach out and download that podcast or go to that conference or go to that talk, watch that YouTube video, and then implement. And if you do that, you will thrive in this new environment moving forward, because unfortunately, I think most agents just aren't willing to do that.
It's an opportunity then, really, if we think about it. So
it's a huge one.
Yeah, it is really. If we think about this, like this could actually be, I think of it in a very positive light. So you have some of the more lazy agents, let's say, that are going to exit from the industry. And then you as a non-lazy agent and one who's willing to increase their skill set, as you're talking about, it's very likely that buyers now are going to interview multiple agents. And so you become very good at this buyer process. you are going to have the lion's share of the business. If the buyer is now interviewing 5 or 6 agents like a listing would, and we've been doing for years, now you have a huge opportunity. So when you're thinking about these skill sets where the agent needs to improve upon, is this more around, hey, like how we're positioning our service, what we're doing that's differentiating us, how we're going to help this client? Or is this around like tangible skills, our skill set as like hard skills as real estate agents?
I think it's more, it's both, yes. But it's more, this is back to something we talked about earlier. Never assume that people know anything. So again, they're hiring you because they don't know how to buy a house, right? They need you to do a lot of the stuff for them. They don't understand the process. So they don't know the pitfalls. You're their protection against all that. So start with, they don't know what a buyer's agent does. Cool. Let me explain. So first thing, here's what I'm going to do for you. When you hire me, I'm going to help you find a house. I even have access to off-market properties. I have access to properties that are coming soon, right? So you start to stack all the different things that you do that you as an agent have taken for granted your entire career. Like every little thing that you do, you start to stack those, and it's selling yourself. You're like, hey, when you hire me, here's the package you get. Well, we'll help you buy a house. We can even, some of them are off market, some are coming soon. We'll help you find financing. We'll help you find a great lender that has the most competitive rates and lowest fees and can get the job done in the quickest amount of time. Placing them with the lender, most agents are just like, well, yeah, of course. Like I send them my 3 lenders. Well, you realize that is a value add to the buyer, right? Because if you are referring them someone that you know is great, they don't have to dig through this pile of potential lenders themselves. That's a value add to them. So tell them. And the buyer's sitting there as you're going through this. Maybe it's a video you record, or maybe it's in a buyer presentation, and you go through and you just outline every little thing that to you is obvious, but they're in their eyes, they're hearing it and they're like, cool, I don't have to worry about that. Oh, they're taking that off my plate too. Oh, really? Okay. Oh, I didn't even know that home warranties, you're going to get me a home warranty that the seller pays for. So that means if the water pipe breaks, 90 days after we move in, that's covered. Wow. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I guess that could be a big deal. And you start to stack all these things that is just the way you've done business forever. And now they're going to look at everyone else who is just agents with, charge this amount. And then you with this pile of services, and they're going to say, how much?
It's so true. And I think also the trust factor is huge too. And like we as buyers agents are also helping buyers navigate unknown unknowns. Like they don't know what they don't know. They think they're going to buy a house. They see something on Zillow and they're going to write an offer and they're going to get the house. But we as agents know that there's so many more details, and really we're helping them navigate this and make the best decision for themselves. It's a really powerful way of thinking about it. So what are you having agents do, I guess, to prepare for this? Is this starting to nail their value prop, practice their presentations, put together a presentation if you don't have one yet? Are these some of the actionable steps that you have agents doing right now?
Yeah. Paying attention to all the different things you do throughout the course of a transaction or throughout the course of a day, and just start making a list, because once you do that, you start to realize, holy crap, I do all of this on behalf of my seller. I do all of this on behalf of my buyer. And now you just have to let people know that you do those things. So it starts with an awareness for yourself that, holy crap, you are adding a ton of value, even though that's just how it is. Okay, cool. You're a great agent that does a lot for your clients. You want more clients? Let them know all the stuff you do, right? And they're not going to be beating you up like, well, so-and-so will do it for 0.5% less. They're going to be like, I want all that. That sounds amazing. How much is that? Like, how much for your services? Yeah. So
that's that is actually a very worthwhile practice, I think, for every agent. I haven't heard that before, but like document what you're doing for a buyer and seller. And I also think that this maybe help with confidence too, where sometimes buyers agents and listing agents, they're like, I don't really know what I do. Frankly, I put a sign in and I price the home and that's it. And it's like, do you really? I know that there are agents that just do that, but if you're a good agent, consuming podcasts, listening to content, trying to improve your skill set, there's a very high likelihood that you are doing a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for.
I 1,000% agree. Okay, you make a great point. Anyone who's listening to this podcast right now, you're showing through your actions that you are investing in becoming a better professional. You are investing your time, the most valuable thing on the planet, to be better for your clients. I would bet you're a much better agent than you give yourself credit for. You just need to get others to see it. And that's the magic of the whole thing.
That's such a great line. Great way for agents to start thinking through this. Dustin, as we're wrapping up here, is there anything that we've missed that we can on your mind as far as what we can discuss? Otherwise, we can move into how agents can reach out to you.
No, man. I mean, you asked some great questions. We covered a lot. There's a reason why I focus so much on like foundational concepts, and in this world where we want the next tactic, we want the shiny thing. Oh, just tell me which lead program to pay for, and I'll do it. Right? Cool. That, like, I'm not saying those things aren't real and those things can't move the needle, but if that's all you're focused on, but your foundation's all jacked up or it's missing, good luck. You could go spend all the money you want on YLOPO or Zillow or Facebook ads, but you have no foundation. So if you just focus on the foundational concepts, then you have something to build off of. And when you nail the foundational stuff, you're going to be crushing it already. You may not even need all those fancy lead gen programs and this, that, and the other that you think you do. Well, you only think you do because you don't have a foundation yet.
That's such a good point. And a lot of people think they have a lead problem, but where my mind's going with this is maybe you have a foundations problem. Like, it may not be a lead problem that you have. Maybe you just don't have your foundations all in line in order to capitalize on what's already in your network and how to grow that.
1,000%.
Yeah, absolutely. How can agents reach out to you, and tell them a little bit about your show as well?
Yeah, the easiest way is just DM me on Instagram @MassiveAgent. And my podcast, the Massive Agent Podcast, find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. And, we've been doing it every Thursday for 6 years. And, back to something that I talked about earlier, I didn't know how to podcast. I didn't know anything about it. I just, in hindsight, if I had said, I'm going to try this podcasting thing for a month or 3 months or 6 months, I would have quit. I would have absolutely given up. But what I did was it was New Year's Day 2018. I just decided I'm going to do a podcast. Like, I'm going to do a podcast, period. And so then I decided the day, and I just kept doing them over and over and over. And over time, I got good at it. I attracted an audience. It kept growing, but not nearly as fast as I thought it would. Mm-hmm. And so consistency is such a cheat code. It really is. Like this, I've built this stubbornness where no matter how I'm feeling, no matter what mood I'm in, no matter if I feel like doing it or not, I do a podcast every freaking week. That's just what I do, and it's changed my life forever. So everyone listening, there's something you can do that you just do, period, and it's going to change everything. Maybe it takes 6 months, maybe it takes 6 years. I have no idea. But it's a cheat code when you just consistently do the thing. And that's what my podcast has done for me. So I'd be honored if you'd listen. But if there's anything I can do to help, just reach out to me on Instagram @MassiveAgent. I'm also on YouTube, TikTok, everywhere @MassiveAgent. But Instagram DMs is usually the easiest way to contact me directly.
Sweet. That's amazing. Yes, and I'd highly recommend it. I'm an avid listener. You have a ton of great information on the podcast and on your socials too. Dustin, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you having me.